right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on episode 18 of Bullish. Remember, anything that we discuss is not individual stock advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Stenger Family Office and its clients may hold positions in some of the stocks discussed. For a full disclosure, visit StangerFamilyOffice.com. I'm Sam Hardy. Joining me, as always, we've got Nick Stenger, producer Owen. We are Stenger Family Office. For the past 43 years, it has been our mission to deliver clarity and confidence to help secure your financial future. We are very excited for today's episode. We have two guests joining us. And yes, you heard that correctly. Not one, but two. We got Grant Newland joining us for a second time. He was on Nick's show, as well as Tom Ackman, who's joining us for the first time. So very happy to have them with us. What we're talking health of the consumer, housing market a little, some Tesla talk, as well as some distressed iconic American brands. So, looking forward to it. And Nicholas, I'll let you introduce the guests.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Very excited to be here. Thank you.
We got Tom Ackman, who happens to be my next door neighbor.
This is true.
So he was kind of obligated to do this show. Platinum Decking, you're the CEO, president?
Owner and president.
Owner and president. You started it 5 years ago. You guys are now top 5 globally for Trex products. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
decks.
We've got a real entrepreneur in the room with us today. We've got Grant Newland, another entrepreneur, returning guest, like Sam said, running Newland VC. Grant is, both of these guys are U of I grads. I don't know if you know that. Both U of I grads. Grant is also MBA from Duke. You were at EY before, spent some time at Kraft Heinz. That's another brand, might be in distress. We'll see what happens.
Little trouble, yeah.
But we will get to that in a second. Thanks for coming on the show. Like Sam said, couple big things we want to talk about. I think one of the biggest topics is going to be the strength of the consumer. What are you guys seeing? Tom, maybe let's start with you at the decking business. What are you seeing with the consumer right now?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you hear so much about what's going on with, the economy and people aren't spending, and we're seeing the exact opposite. I can't speak to every consumer across every, monetary spectrum, but in the, I guess middle to upper middle class, everybody wants to spend money on their house. I mean, every single, we're up almost 50% over last year. And going into the year, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know, are people going to start tightening up? I mean, that's what you keep hearing. You keep hearing it. And with every passing day, it seems to be getting better. And I sit there holding my breath going, when is this going to change? And I don't think it's going to. I think the nature of what's going on with people staying in their houses, being forced almost in some capacities, and then just the trends and, people wanting to have outdoor living. People want to, they see it as an enjoyment option. So I could dive a little deeper into, what I see as the difference between maybe maintenance on a property and investing in things that give you satisfaction and happiness in your house. But people are not, I would say people are spending at a higher level in the markets we're in, even more than 1 year ago today.
Let's talk Platinum Decking. Explain it to everybody who hasn't heard of it before. Walk us through the entire company.
Cool. Yeah. So, went to University of Illinois, had no intentions. I was going to be more in the sectors like you guys, planning to end up in some sort of entrepreneurship or finance, and kind of got lucky, ended up in a little internship where I was in the trades, running a little painting business as a college kid, and loved it. So I stuck with that for a while. And we were the ones actually staining decks for years. And we hated it. Homeowners hated it. We'd finish it and they'd be like, wait, it doesn't look that good. I'm like, yeah, I know. You live in the Midwest. You probably shouldn't have a wood deck and you probably shouldn't put money into it. And came along this Trex product. And for a while, people was like, I don't want that plastic deck. That's that weird thing that, why would you do that? That's really expensive. And all of a sudden it started to click and I saw an opportunity. So we switched 2019, we switched fully, sold the painting business, and we started selling decks without having ever built one before. So I went out there, started knocking on doors. We got some leads, made some sales. Hey, we know what we're doing. And fast forward, it just, we cannot keep up with the demand that's out there. So Trex is, a product that you install it once and you're never going to have to do anything again. So specifically with, millennials being the biggest home buyers, they don't know how to swing a hammer for the most part. That's what our generation grew up. It's not like it was 30, 40 years ago. So people want outdoor living, people want maintenance free, and they've got these products to a point where investment wise, nobody in the Midwest should ever build a deck out of wood ever again. Um, Over the course of the lifetime of the product, it's going to cost less because there's no maintenance. And so it's one of these value propositions where we walk in and go, hey, it's going to be more up front. You're going to get more value on the back. And they go, sign me up. And so it's been really nice because, we got some great competitors. There's a lot of good contractors out there, but for the most part, um, most business professionals don't enter the trades. It's typically tradespeople who think they can do it better than their boss. So they go out there and they know how to build a deck, maybe better than I did when I started, but they have no idea how to hire a person. They have no idea how to make a sale. And so it's a bunch of people out there trying to figure out how to run a company, but they know how to build the deck. And I came in knowing how to run a company, knowing how to treat people, know how to provide customer service. I just didn't know how to build a deck, but I did have an engineering degree, figured it out, built the first couple myself and go, this is not rocket science. And so it's a really cool industry to be in. A lot more people are exiting the trades than entering them too. So huge opportunity here over the next couple of years.
So Grant, let's pivot to, we just talked U.S. consumer, at least Naperville area, and you guys are in a couple other markets, but let's talk Latin America. You guys heavily invest in Latin America, some other places. I think Pakistan, you said?
Done one there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about the international consumer.
Yeah. Well, Pakistan's a different beast. They've got things like Taliban, IMF bailouts, floods, all kinds of things. So we can leave that one.
So the U.S. is doing pretty well, is what you're saying.
I'd say relatively speaking. Yeah. The nice thing about LATAM, though, things like Brazil, right? Massive consumer market. The consumers in Brazil are actually more engaged on social media than any other consumer base, including India, China, or the US. It's about 240 million folks in Brazil. So again, they're very largely insulated from a lot of the stuff we see here. So just more, think of it more uncorrelated. They have their own set of issues. But the middle classes in Brazil and Mexico are rising at such a level that their purchasing power is growing rapidly, even for things like basic consumer goods, right? So maybe not the high end stuff that Tom's doing, but we're talking like consumer packaged goods, new food products, beauty products, things like that.
Yeah, one thing that was really interesting in the PwC annual report that they put out, where they talk about their own sales growth as an organization, India was up 21% year over year. Kind of fascinating, where you see that growth and you go, okay, obviously new business formation, obviously companies need audits, obviously there's companies coming from other places going to India. Probably China is one of the big losers of industry, right? And India is picking up a lot of this business. What about Mexico? I mean, are you guys, where is Trex made, by the way?
All in the U.S.
All U.S.
All of the decking's made in the U.S.
Wow. Okay.
Some of the railing, other stuff is international, but all of the decking is U.S.
Did you guys see any supply chain issues then, or were you pretty much okay because everything's in the U.S.?
They couldn't make it fast enough. So there was not supply chain issues, but there was, this boom. They couldn't predict how much people wanted of this stuff. So they've figured out a lot of it. But for a while, yeah, it was like, we can't get it because it's all been bought.
Wow. Yeah. What are you guys seeing internationally? Let's talk India. Do you do any deals in India? Have you looked at anything?
I've been really trying. It's been really hard to find.
Why?
It's just such a unique beast. It's a massive place, but I've put a lot of resources in there and we get deal flow, but to structure the deal and to deal with the local intricacies of the how the economy works is quite different than even in Brazil or Mexico. So we'll get one eventually, I believe. Yeah.
So no issues with the consumer as far as you guys can tell. Nothing that sticks out right this second.
No.
So if there's no issue with the consumer, and you saw Walgreens this morning, right, came out with just horrendous earnings. We've been saying Walgreens is a dumpster fire. You can fact check us on this on YouTube for a while. Walgreens blamed all their problems this morning on their earnings call on the consumer. And they're like, the consumer sucks. We're like, well, wait a second. If the consumer's bad, then how come Amazon is at record all-time highs? So it really is a management issue. What are the management issues? I mean, Tom, talk a little bit about management. When you look at public companies to invest in, you've obviously got a portfolio. What are you thinking from an entrepreneurial standpoint when you're looking at companies to buy?
Yeah, I'll touch on the Walgreens thing a little bit. I mean, I used to always think this, when I was a consumer, I'd be like, well, why am I going to go to Walgreens? Well, you're going to go to Walgreens for that one-off thing, right? You're not going to typically do your your full weekly shopping at a Walgreens. And so you'd go, oh, we need some dice. Let's run over there. Hey, wait, we need a pair of scissors. Well, to your point, Amazon can service all of that these days. And so the amount, it used to be, well, I'm not going to do Amazon. I'll wander Walgreens. My wife placed an order this morning for something from Amazon. It'll be here in 4 hours. My time, your time, everybody's time is more valuable than driving over to the Walgreens for that thing. So I don't think it's the consumer. I think the consumer is smart enough to know what their time's worth and not going to go over to the Walgreens for that slightly overpriced thing that was convenient back in the day. That's what Walgreens offered outside of the pharmaceutical and prescription side was convenience. Well, I think driving to Walgreens is less convenient than hitting the button on Amazon these days. So, I just think at the end of the day, people want their lives to be easier. They want to focus on the things that give them happiness. And so people don't want to deal with stuff like that anymore,
Yeah, it's really a testament to how the economy's changed, and like you said, I mean, time is your most valuable resource because it's the most limited. So, that's where I think you guys have won out too, right? Is by saying, hey, we can provide you a product that way less maintenance. You're going to have to spend way less time messing with it. And that's what people are really putting a premium on right now.
Yeah. I think we all see it with social media. People value time and don't understand their attention spans are so much less than they used to be. People want things now. That's something that social media has done is like, well, I don't like what I see in front of me. Swipe something new. So people don't want to wait for things. People don't have the patience they had. People expect everything I want should be in front of me at all times. And if I have to work for it, I don't want it anymore. So I think there's a multitude of factors. And to your point, companies like Amazon have made it really easy for people to become almost addicted to simplicity,
Grant, you spent a lot of time in corporate strategy and the finance side of operating businesses, looking at balance sheet, looking at deals, right? Can Walgreens turn it around? What's their turnaround story here?
I mean, so I think of it like swapping out the consumer is in Foxtrot and Walgreens towards Costco and Amazon. And so why spend $9 for a kombucha you can buy off the shelf at Foxtrot, which now is no longer with us. Maybe it comes back. The problem I see with Walgreens is a bit of what the banks have, which is these legacy cost structures with brick and mortar businesses that are stuck. A lot of these places are in not great neighborhoods. Sometimes even in Chicago, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to go into this Walgreens right now. If I go in there, half the stuff's closed up anyway. So the way they've kind of built their system,
well, you can steal $1,000 and you're okay. I don't know if you know that.
Try that.
$9.99.
$9.99.
I saw
That's not
somebody
legal
complain-
advice, by the way.
Isn't that a California thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
San
well,
Francisco.
there was a guy who he upped everything to like $1,001 or whatever it is, and then when they came up, he had coupon discounts for everything to get it down to his normal price. There was a store that had everything locked up. It was like no matter what you wanted, it was all locked up. And we look at LoopNet all the time. And you're seeing Walgreens stores popping up all over the place. They're clearly trying to get rid of the brick and mortar issue, but I don't think it's working too well.
How insane are those policies though? Those the lack of any sense of reality, and it's like you could think that, okay, we have a problem with certain issues in our country, right? You can have that belief, but also say, hey, you can't just walk in and steal whatever you want. That seems insane.
Well, here's a question. I mean, how much of them closing stores do you think really has to do more with that? And they just don't want to say it because then they'll get in trouble for, pulling stores. I remember when, there was a Walmart getting pulled on the south side of Chicago because they couldn't turn a profit due to theft. And everyone's like, now you're destroying the city. It's like, well, you can't, damned if I do, damned if I don't, you know what I mean?
That's not a charity.
Yeah, they're going to close down 25% of their 8,500 remaining stores. Stock's down 23% now this morning.
Yeah, and I think Walgreens is also just a horrible story. It's a great case study of just mismanagement. Like how do you not? First of all, you pay $5.7 billion to settle the opioid crisis, which I'm not sure exactly what they argued was Walgreens' role in that, other than prescribing these things. Right? They did seem like they got kind of looped in with the Purdue settlement. Purdue seemed a lot more responsible for it than Walgreens did. I don't know if you guys have a perspective on that, but how do you not see that coming?
I wonder if this is just a guess, but I wonder if they profited off of it. Maybe weren't complacent in it, but profit off it. So let's take some of that to help towards this problem kind of thing,
Well, and real quick, you talked about Amazon, not only on the, the quick grab and go beverage you're grabbing, but think of it also, I believe, I don't know the full details. I don't know a lot with medical stuff, but I believe that Amazon's now doing this like scripts to your door. So you
Yeah.
don't even need to get your script anymore at Walgreens. So now I'm not going to buy the grab and go because I don't need to get the script. So it's all just on Amazon. It all just comes.
Yeah, I logged in the other day because we're going on a trip, and same thing. It's like I could run to the store, which half the time they don't even have what I'm looking for, or I'll just order it. I think it was one day. I had to wait a full 24 hours to get, what I wanted for it. But yeah, and I was like, I texted him immediately. I was like, all right, nail in the coffin for Walgreens. They're actually pushing the pharmacy now, and it had like it I mean, it's a little creepy. I think it kind of knew what I had issues with. Like I got some prescriptions that I get, and
What kind
it
of
was
prescriptions?
up. Nothing too serious. Yeah, yeah. No, it's allergies. So I've been dying the last couple months. But yeah. They had it up there like, "Hey, you want to order it?" I was like, no, I'm good for now." But
Yeah, I mean, the story with Walgreens too, and Amazon. I mean, Amazon's fascinating as a business model. I don't know if you remember this, but Bezos was literally on these late night talk shows with, I think it was David Letterman at the time, or Jay Leno, or somebody like that, and they're laughing at him for losing $5 billion a year. They're like, "This is hilarious. Like, you're such an idiot." And this is the heyday of Walgreens.
Yep.
Walgreens literally went up from 1984 to 2004. Walgreens went up 21% per year. It was the Nvidia of its time, right? And they were laughing at him like, "When are you going to make money?" And he's like, "Profits aren't that important right now. We're reinvesting in our business." And what he really meant, that he didn't say, that investors knew, which was AWS, right? So you had this cash cow of AWS, and then you I would argue Amazon's basically a monopoly now.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But actually, Walmart's competed pretty well too. Walmart's stock has surprisingly kept pace because they made that shift to becoming a data company, right? And that's all Amazon was in the first place.
Yep. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned, what do I look for in management things of a company? And it ties a little bit into what we're saying about Walgreens, which is, how dominant are you in your sector, but how ready are you to shift? Because nothing lasts forever, right? And can anybody think of a change Walgreens has made in their strategy over the last 10 years? It's the same thing it was 10 years ago. Everybody else is shifting. Everybody else is pivoting. And so a lot of what I look for when I'm looking at companies is how good are you doing today, but what is plan B? Because you look at all the successful companies, it's phase 2 and phase 3 where they continue to dominate, not, hey, we got lucky for 6 years,
How do you spot that trend early? Like, you guys spotted it, right? You said, "Hey, we're out here staying in decks. This is a nightmare, especially for people in the Midwest." But how do you? It seems obvious today, right? 5, 6 years later, you're like, "Okay, that obviously that makes a lot of sense." But how do you make that leap back then?
I'll two things. One, I'll tie it into something my dad taught me early around when I started investing in stocks when I was in high school. He's like, if you like something, you're a good consumer, other people are probably going to like it too. And so that's one of the things, if it's made sense to me, that's where I've always, if I believe in it, the whole net promoter thing where, the people who really like someone are the people who drive a brand. And I've always considered myself one of those people. So if I really like something, I'm going to, believe in it. And so when I did the research, there were 3 or 4 things that really stuck out to me. One was the idea of, the fact that a Trex stack has like 30 or 40,000 plastic bags that are unrecyclable outside of that deck realistically. So I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Jewel, but there's a little box and it typically has Trex boards around it. And you take the old Jewel plastic bags, you put them in that slot, and 30 or 40,000 of them go into a deck. And so the idea that 95% of a Trex deck is recycled plastic that normally ends up in a landfill. You compare that to the fact that you have to cut down trees to build the wood one. Isn't that where every American would like to be? It's one of those no-brainers where you go, we can cut down less trees and use something like, there's a lot of gimmicks around recycling, right? This is not a gimmick. This is, hey, we take stuff that you can't use elsewhere and we put it into something you can enjoy without cutting down a resource. So that was something that, just knowing the trends in the country, the trends in, even politics and where people felt good internally, that one just seemed like, well, this is going to catch on really, really well. The second one was just, again, I was so deep in the weeds of, if you put stain on wood in a climate where we're 100 degrees last week, we're 60 degrees this week, we're going to be 0 in a couple months. And then, again, that's not how paint is supposed to work, And so when you recognize that there's just a better mousetrap that fits 3 or 4 sectors of the consumer, I go, this is a no-brainer. This is not going to be a hard sale. And, for the first 2 or 3 years, we were still sitting there telling people, they're like, well, why wouldn't I do wood? Isn't wood still good? And I'm like, no, these days we don't even get asked about it. It's just, it has become the way you do things. You're almost silly. Again, if you're a middle class to upper middle class, if you're rural on a farm, you're probably still building a little wood deck with your family, So it's not the entire sector of every consumer, but it really just makes too much sense not. And so when I wrote up the plan and saw it, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. And I told my wife, and it was the first time she said one of my harebrained entrepreneur ideas. She's like, let's do that one,
And now you guys are adding fencing, right? And you have patios already.
Yeah. So then I always planned on just keeping it simple. Jack of all trades is a jack of none type of thing. And my brother, who Grant knows pretty well, he was working at Accenture at the start of the pandemic, doing retail consulting. So as you can imagine, when you're on a high-end Kohl's consulting project and the pandemic hits, you fear for your job life. And my brother was put on the bench. He was doing really well there. Kohl's laid off every single retail consultant. And he called me up and he goes, can I work for you? And I said, I like you too much to work for me. So I said, we're brothers, we're good friends. Like, I do not want to complicate things. I said, now that being said, we get asked every single day, hey, can I have my deck land on a patio? Wouldn't that be cool to have a patio under this deck? And so I said, hey, Scott, do you want to run that side of the business? So we launched that 2 years after the start of Platinum Decking. That's Platinum Patio. And so, yeah, we do a ton of hardscapes, and I don't want to do everything, but if it fits into the outdoor living backyard experience, it's silly for us not to incorporate. So yeah, we've added in a new band of pergolas. We're doing structure pergolas, and we're doing fencing. And so if you want your backyard to be a fun place to be, that's what we're getting into.
So let's talk about consultants. Your brother's not a consultant anymore, so I can say this. And Grant, you're not a consultant, so I think we're safe to say, I think in certain projects, you bring in a consulting firm to implement a new technology. That makes a ton of sense, right? And you're also trying to avoid hiring a bunch of people, firing a bunch of people right away. And there's a lot of intellectual capital. My experience with consultants has been a little bit different. It's been, hey, tell us what we should do, right? And then you've got a kid who just graduated college who's now put on a major Fortune 500 to come in and paid tons of money to come in and tell the CEO, you have to raise revenue and cut expenses. It's like, okay, thank you. Like, very helpful. So what does consulting do from here? Is it still going to be a huge deal just because you've got all these legacy zombie companies that just need to blame somebody if things go wrong?
I mean, a lot of friends of mine are at Big Three, McKinsey, Bain, BCG. They're all calling me, what are they going to do next right now? I'm hearing 6 months severance for some of these Big Three, and then they make a lot of money there and they're not billing hours. I mean, when I was in consulting, I always said, if you need a consultant, that means you don't know how to do your job properly, right? Now, like you said, there's a lot of cases where you actually are going to want to have that, right? But it's a struggle. Same reason why a lot of these, my friends in like software sales, B2B software sales, anything that's a service provider or an outsourced thing that isn't to the core right now for a lot in a higher interest rate environment and some uncertainty, they're just cutting these third-party expenses as much as they can, these corporates. So I don't know, and with remote work, I mean, the whole thing with consultants was, hey, we're going to be on site. We're there next to you. We're working with you. And now with remote work, the clients don't even want to spend all that money for the T&E to travel for them to be there. So now we're going to be remote consultants that don't even know our business because you're not on site and you're somehow know more than we do. And it just becomes this billable nightmare. So we'll see, but right now it's struggle. Could
we put an index of stocks together where they have the most consultants on staff and then just short that?
It's not a bad idea. It's funny you mentioned, the company hiring consultants is the one that doesn't know what they're doing, right? It's funny because it's I used to watch this happen, and it's like, all right, we need a solution, so we're going to hire out this solution, pay millions of dollars for it. But then when they bring it to me, be- because it wasn't my idea, it's really, that was my brother said the hardest thing is they'd come in with these solutions and they're so ingrained in their ways. That's the hardest part, is getting them to adapt this thing they just spent $40 million on. And so, I watched, without getting into detail, I watched projects, again, $40 million projects. They go, all right, we're done with it. And they just throw it away. Spend $40 million on a solution because they then weren't ready to implement the change necessary. And my brother always used to say that was the hardest part, was getting people who were used to, let's just say, a paper way of doing things for 50 years to now try and add in a technological solution. They're like, that seems hard. We're just going to scrap it. And I just watched that. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah. Well, that's got to be the kiss of death for most companies is, oh, this is the way we've always done it. It's like if you've got that mentality or you've got all your legacy employees subscribing to that, you're toast. You're done.
Yep.
So, I mean, Grant, let's pivot to you. You look at a lot of tech and a lot of startups. How much is AI real? How much of it is a bunch of nonsense? You just name your company .ai, and then, like we talked about this last podcast, how much of it's real? How much of it's nonsense?
Not an AI expert. Tom might have a view too. He does a lot of early stage investing as well, but it's real, right? It's like saying crypto isn't real. It's like, yeah, it's real. We're all going to be using blockchain-based USDC coins, in my view, at some point in the future. So we'll be using that blockchain rail, kind of like the internet, right? AOL blew up, all these, but then it's like, oh, we still have the internet. Companies are built and then they can use it, but there aren't a lot of new Netscapes coming up, right? So those companies already kind of have done that. So AI is real. We're just looking to see, how much these companies are actually using it. And like I said last time on the show, really looking under the hood, right? And so just asking detailed questions about the LLMs they're using. Are they building a native LLM? Are they building on top? Is it sort of an ancillary product? It's still early days. Yeah.
So a lot of losers still to figure out, and then there will be some winners at the end of it.
Well, that's what I said about like A16Z or Sequoia. They know they can take 10 AI bets knowing 9 will fail. But if they're in the one that becomes a unicorn, it doesn't matter. So yeah.
I'll take it a slightly different route. I think one of the areas where AI is going to become a huge part is in really small business as well. That might not be the place you can necessarily invest or see the trends, but like it is things like a small landscaping company that's never had a receptionist being able to now have a receptionist to capture their leads. It's companies that can't afford staff that are able to put in really simple technological solutions in the service industry. It's funny, I was on a car dealership page the other day and the little AI chatbot shows up and it acts like it's a real person. And I know it's not. And I ask, you're not a real person. I was like, I'm absolutely a real person. And it's not, it's absolutely not. But like they're getting to a point where, again, it's hard to find customer service people. It's, customer service for the most part has taken a huge step back since the pandemic, and the ability to put in these really simple AI solutions for small business, I think, is something that very few people are talking about and is going to be a huge sector of AI growth over the next couple of years.
What was the catalyst though for AI to really take off in 2024, even the late part of 2023, right? Because we had machine learning for a long time, right? We've had driverless technology, even if it's not FSD from Tesla. You've had the little, lane assist type of thing. You've had a lot of autonomy for a while. You've had RPA technology, robotic process automation, which RPA now, we have people that work in technology and high level consulting for AI. Like, Nick, RPA isn't even like, that's like legacy technology, and that was all the talk 3 years ago. What was the catalyst to shift to what we have today with AI being rolled out, ChatGPT? Was it NVIDIA coming up with new chips, new technology? Was that the pipes and wires we needed for this to become mainstream, or what was the catalyst?
My opinion would be it's more media than anything. It's human adaptation of being comfortable with this being the way of life. Like, again, to your point, the technology didn't change in 6 months, right? It's getting better every day, but it's been around. But That's a robot. Oh my God. Like, I want to talk to a real person. I think it's more, maybe it's the media around it, the Nvidia stock that makes people, everybody's owns it, partakes in it. And so now I think it's more just, it's become a way of life. And so it's no longer a fear, like iRobot with Will Smith, like the idea of, oh my God, they're going to ruin our world. It's like, I think it's more humans have, us consumers have come to be, I'm okay with this. This makes sense. Maybe it's the downturn in customer service that made people go, I'd rather talk to a nice robot than a sassy
That's a good
barista,
point. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk Tesla then. Grant, you were a super early Tesla investor. When did you get in? 2012?
Yeah, 2011, 2012. Yeah.
How did
Got
you
out in
figure that out?
2020. I had some buddies that worked there. So
Okay.
back, they had the showroom in Oak Brook. That was the
Okay.
first one here, or main one here. There's one downtown. And I was in the showrooms, test drove the car, saw it. Just made sense to me. Just made sense to me at the time. Yep.
What is the, I've said this on the show, but what is the story with Tesla with FSD?
Well, on Elon's last call, he says it's getting so good, according to him, that there's not much more iterating they can do. I think the big challenge there is the fact that the other cars don't have the FSD. If every car on the road had FSD and they're all connected cars and IoT and all that, and every car was a brand new Tesla, there would be no more accidents, no more need really for insurance. But 99.9% of the cars out there don't have that. So I think that's part of the challenge.
Does it become a regulatory story of the exact opposite, whatever everyone thinks, where, hey, there's no way these are going to get allowed to be completely full self-driving? Or does it become the opposite of that, where it's like, hey, like you have to have an FSD car because you got all these groups out there. You've got MAD, right? The Mothers Against Drunk Driving. You've got the groups of talking about, all sorts of, impaired driving cases, the insurance people, right? The lobbyists. Does it become the opposite of like, hey, self-driving is so much safer than a human driving? You have to have it, or you at least have to have it enabled in your car.
That's right. Yeah. And our, call it grandkids generation, for sure will never be allowed to drive a car. Yeah. I think it'll be illegal. That's what Elon says.
Yeah.
Why would you, right? Think of it. Yeah. I mean,
Well, you've made that point with the insurance companies are probably going to be the ones that go to Washington and lobby for this because it's less of a liability for them.
I mean, if you guys read about some of the new auto stuff that's being put in place in like the next couple of years, with the car will be able to sense whether you're drunk or not, and they can shut it down. That's going through Congress.
kill switch.
Yeah.
Kill switch.
Yeah. I've seen the kill switch stuff, which makes me want to not buy new cars.
Right.
But
because
it's happening.
It is.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
And eventually they're going to, we have this conversation all the time about just the engines in general and regulatory, like environmental regulations, where get a V8 now and hold on to it while you can.
That's
'cause
what I
you
just
probably
did.
won't be able to. What'd you buy?
I got a Defender. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
No money down, 3.9. I was like, I'm sold. I'll have this thing for 10 years. My last gas car I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what we say. Well, Jamie's new car is a V8 too.
Yeah.
And you're like, get it while you can, because at some point they're going to get rid of it.
Well, a lot of that speaks to, and there's a lot of people for very good reason who are very nervous about stuff like that, right? From watching the World Economic Forum to watching Davos. This guy Klaus Schwab. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, he's not doing himself. If he wants to come across as not a dictator and not like the scariest like villain of all time in history, he could do himself a lot more favors, like not put on that creepy outfit where he looks like Darth Vader, or the guy from Star Trek, right? But a lot of people have very good reason to be very concerned about some of this stuff, right? You get into this kill switch, right? We don't like your politics. We don't like what you put on Facebook or what you liked on Twitter. Guess what? Your car doesn't work. That's a huge concern people have too.
When I have that concern. Me saying that that's what's happening isn't because I want it.
Yeah.
Very big concern, but I do think, to his point, it's just, you won't be able to, every car is going to have to be full self-driving at some point.
Is it inevitable though, or is it something where you do have a lot of libertarians, you have a lot of people, even from, the classic liberal from the left, right, who say, hey, we've gone too far. This is becoming too 1984-esque. And we have basically a technocracy where we can because technology allows you to central control things. Look at China. China's the test ground for most of this technology. They have a camera looking every single way on a street corner. London did the same thing now to test to see where gas cars are going, or if you have a high polluting car. And then I saw a video on Twitter the other day where these guys were going in with you would know better than me, these saws, and chopping down the pole, the camera pole.
Yeah,
Did
that's
you
right.
see that?
I've seen those guys. They're still doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny. Yeah, good for them. Yeah.
California is talking about implementing it too, right? Like you got to pay a tax for how many miles you drive.
Oh,
because
yeah.
everybody's buying electric cars, so the gas tax is no longer doing what it needs to do. So they're just going to tax you for driving your car, and however they'll track it through cameras, however many miles you drive, and
That's
insane.
insane.
But
That
you
is
think
insane.
about
It's not being implemented, but they're talking about
it's
it.
going to have to happen. They
Yeah.
do it in Brazil, other places. It's going to have to happen because there won't be any tax revenue and people are going to use the roads. But think about it. They already have toll roads, right? So sometimes we get really scared about these things. Like we already do that with toll roads. Really? That's all that
Do we have
is.
the highest toll roads in the country here in Illinois?
Yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah, I drove through a few on the way here, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things sound scary as long as the right people, the libertarians, the politicians get enough input from people to say, hey, these are the rules of the road, or these are what things that the government can and cannot do. We have to have that accountability there. The people need to do that.
And I do think, again, do you really want to drive or sit in the back and work? Like, wouldn't we all want a driver? Like, isn't that like a luxurious dream of never having, to sit in the back? I mean,
Yeah.
So I think it's more the fear of the regulation and how we're going to be watched and, less control of our lives. But if you think about it, no deaths, no accidents, potentially, you don't have to own a vehicle. I mean,
right.
The middle class is getting that decimated by car payments. Like the idea that you can use them when you want to be more efficient. I mean, it all makes too much sense as long as Big Brother isn't looking over people and controlling their lives. But like, I think in 40, 50 years, people would be like, you drove a car? Well, that sucked, not, hey, I envious of that, like the idea of being able to go out and have a drink. And I mean, we all like Uber. Uber doesn't scare us, right? Like, so why is it going to be I think it's just
Only sometimes.
Well, that's a great
In
point.
Houston.
I was just thinking about it.
I had a guy who came in with a 2005 Altima that scared me, and I thought we were gonna die. But anyways,
all right. I've been there. I
I
know.
don't have to worry too much longer because take Uber's market cap and give it to Tesla because
Right.
Uber doesn't have the driverless cars. Tesla's going to have them, and they're going to have all this whole fleet system.
Yes.
Right.
Did you see anything about insiders selling shares from Uber, like the CEO? I thought I saw something about
Wasn't
the
watching it
CEO was
closely enough.
maybe
that might have
some
been
shares.
fake news.
Yeah, like I wasn't sure. That's why I'm posing it more as a question, maybe something to look at.
They're
But
doing a great job right now eating Grubhub and DoorDash's lunch and
Yeah.
combining that all into one ecosystem in one app. But in the long run, Tesla should take it.
Yeah.
so August
I agree
8th is
with
a
you.
big date.
Yeah.
That's when the autonomous taxi event and everything is, right?
When's it
On
going?
the
Yeah,
8th,
soon.
I think.
Yeah,
August.
yeah.
So,
But
so
he's got a history too of saying we're going to have this tomorrow, and it's
how long have we been waiting for the new Roadster?
Right. Yeah. Even the Cybertruck was. I mean,
I've
I'm not
seen-
going to.
I've seen a lot of them lately, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then have you seen people like take it through the car wash? They don't turn the car wash setting on, and then all of a sudden they go to drive it that afternoon. Like, my car's not turning on. I can't get into
Oh, yeah, it
it.
has a car wash
Everything's
setting.
locked up.
Why?
Oh.
Because it closes
a
up a
great
couple critical access points to the electronics. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but it rains while you're driving sometimes.
It doesn't make sense.
I don't. All right, they need to sort that one out.
Yeah.
We need some engineers on that one.
Yeah.
DoorDash is down 50% since its all-time high. Uber is actually making brand new 52-week highs, or at least they did earlier in March. And then you've got Instacart here that just is getting decimated, down 20% since the peak on April 5th. So, I mean, all these we love the delivery apps, right? They're great. But Uber does seem to be, I think you're right. I think at least in the short term, they're the clear winner, right? Unless they can license that technology, the FSD technology.
I mean, the problem is that restaurants will use DoorDash, but they can't make any money off that. The margins are so tight in a small restaurant that the second you give 30% to DoorDash, it's a lot of, I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of my favorite restaurants that used to be on DoorDash, they're not on there anymore. It's a select few that are on there. It's usually the bigger chains and the ones that have just, they've built in the smaller margin revenue into their database. But it's like, good restaurants don't want to be on DoorDash. And if that's the trend, then again, it's not like DoorDash is making money. So how can it stay? I just don't understand how there will ever be enough money for both parties in such a tight sector, you know?
Is the bearish narrative then on Uber, is it eventually the restaurant just buys their own Tesla, FSD Tesla, throw the food in the back, and then that's their delivery model?
I mean, according to Elon, they won't even have to buy it. They'll just be able to use it.
Just use it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's where we were talking about this too. You bought a Civic a year ago?
Yeah.
And what was the pay? Like, it's 300 and something a month or something like that.
Yeah, I bought right before everything started going down, unfortunately.
But it was like and I think a new
Yeah.
Camry or a new
Yeah,
Civic
this is what we were talking about is I think a new Civic you're like $350, $400 where rates were at, and then you've got insurance on top of it, $100. I've gotten my fair share of tickets in the day, so mine I think is a little bit higher than most, but we were looking, the Tesla right now, they take into account gas savings and also credit, or I guess you don't get the credit if you don't buy it. But leasing, it's $300 a month.
Yeah.
And you can use, Tesla's got their own insurance, right?
Yeah, no maintenance. I mean, I call it the Tesla math, right? Because but
Mhm.
essentially, you're down there basically already.
But
Yeah.
don't they have their own, they provide their
They
own
do
insurance that you
write
can-
premium in Texas and a couple other places.
Okay,
and
but it's not all
I
over
used
the
to work
place.
in auto insurance investment banking, so I'm looking and I'm talking to all these folks, and some of them see it already. They know the writing's on the wall, so there's going to be lots of consolidation. And
Mhm.
In the insurance business?
oh yeah, I was talking the guy who who started AmFam Ventures, $400 million fund in venture. I mean, he's been calling this out for years, and they see it, but they're more forward thinking. Are some of the others, is Allstate? I don't know. What can you really do? They're trying with the telematics and some of these things, right? But yeah, auto insurance, great for consolidation, long term. Long term, theoretically, in the long run, it goes to nil.
So that's why
Right.
insurance companies really haven't gotten the multiple then. Hartford and all these guys. Yeah. I mean, I think Elon's brilliance with the pricing strategy was like, hey, we're not even going to make this a debate over do you want gas or EV? Because that was the debate for the longest time, right? It was a debate over do you want to pay $375 a month for a Honda Civic, which are very cool. And I don't want to knock the Honda Civic.
You
You want
like
to pay
it, it's fine.
well, you
okay.
got the hatchback, which makes it so much worse. But
What color?
It's like the gray.
Yeah.
We just needed a second car, so I picked something up quick because I was working out in the city before I was
That's
here.
the second card.
So
too,
I didn't.
it's a-
Yeah,
They pay okay around here then, right? Yeah, okay.
good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So-
now.
So that decision versus and you even said this, it was like, hey, if I knew I could have gotten a Tesla lease for $300 a month,
I would have never bought that car.
right? So he made it a pricing decision, not an EV versus gas decision. And I don't think people there's some people, obviously some people buying Teslas for EV purposes, but a lot of people are buying it just because it's a cool vehicle, right? And then there's going to be even more people that buy it just for the FSD factor. So question then, why doesn't Musk eventually just pivot? Say, hey, we're going to make a combustible engine. Why don't we make a hybrid with FSD?
As
Could you
long as
get
it's
to
a
that-
V8, that's all I ask, Elon.
Is it too hard to do that operationally?
My dad loves hybrids. I can't stand them. I think it's the worst of both. Doesn't make any sense to me why you would do that. That's just me.
A
But
hybrid, you're saying?
yeah, he loves the plug-in hybrid and stuff. I'm like, now you've got trouble. You still got to do the oil changes. You still got, and now you could have a battery problem or an engine problem. I think to your point, another way to think about it is the hardware of a car is a commodity. I mean, the difference between the truck he pulled up in and mine, they're the same size. They're different brands. They're made in different parts of the world, but they have the same functionality, both V8s, both trucks, both luxury. Okay. So I think the hardware itself on a car, how many car brands we have and models of BMW 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. I think, yeah, Elon's just saying we'll sell that even at almost as a loss leader if you want, because then you make it up on the insurance, you make it up on the software monthly fee.
I would think two things. One, you know what I just realized hybrids are for? They're for people who aren't ready to make the jump to EV.
That's right.
Right?
There you go. That's right.
It's not that they make sense. It's that, hey, I like the idea of that. I don't want to tell you I'm not into EV, so I'm going to do this hybrid thing. See, I'm I'm joining you guys,
Yeah.
Toyota's made a killing doing that.
I will say the Highlander mod, like if you get that I'm not going to buy it. I'm just going to preface it with that. But the Toyota Highlander hybrid, my father-in-law drives one. It's a really nice car. And the electric engine kicks on when you're on the highway and you're just, you got a little extra juice, and he gets 50 miles a gallon. So I do think some people are looking at Toyota has made a very good call early on. Like a lot of these car manufacturers, like we can't beat Tesla at their own game, right? So we're going to focus on hybrids. We're going to make gas cars. We're going to make them affordable and reliable. And Toyota's won by doing that. Look at GM. How much money they lose per EV? Was it like 30 grand or something?
Yeah, it was 30 grand. Ford what lost like $1.5 billion in a quarter on their EVs, and the dealers don't even want them. That's their problem. The dealers aren't buying them because they aren't selling them.
There's nothing uglier than that Mustang SUV. Have you seen that thing?
Yeah.
No,
The Mach-E.
I don't think I need to.
So the thing that comes into play, I think, that we're not talking about yet is that actually China is the one that could be the only one that could take out Tesla. And it's because of their cost structure and because they already have all the technology that they just took from him and his plant there. And if things happen between US and China, they'll just literally take his plant. And so I think they're scaling these EVs that have the range at like cost structures that Elon will never get to. So
And they're very luxurious, super nice.
Apparently-
I've seen some
apparently,
stuff on them.
I've never ridden one, but that's what it seems to be.
Isn't the US just going to tariff those at a level that keeps them equal though?
We can do that here, but we're 4% of the world's population. They can't do that in Brazil where BYD is already. They can everywhere in Mexico, everywhere in LATAM, they're there. Tesla's not even there yet. And they're already there. So they can take another 96%. We can stop them out of just North America, maybe at best.
So the threat to Tesla is not any of these other Fisker just filed for bankruptcy
right.
again.
Lucid's
Rivian
still-
is Lucid's did Volkswagen are they the ones that injected 5 billion into Lucid, or was that for Rivian?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But they're all disasters. You
Yeah.
pull up every single one of those stocks, because I was doing this the other day. They're all down 95, 96%. The only one who's done decent is Tesla. All of them are disasters.
I would argue the biggest risk to Tesla is Jim Cramer saying he likes it.
I
Yeah.
would agree.
You want to move on to brands?
Yeah, we can just kind
Let's
of
skip over there.
run through those. I think the China point was actually very interesting, because we've got it's Boeing, McDonald's, Nike, Starbucks, Walt Disney, Walgreens we already talked about, so we don't need to hit that anymore. But brands that used to be incredible leaders in this country that are no longer that and have just absolutely struggled. Let's we can talk Starbucks really quick, because we had the China conversation. They expanded rapidly over there. They doubled their store count roughly.
They're
right.
projecting that they want to double store count in the next, I think it's 5 years in China. They've already got I think it's like 7,000 stores over there. They want to get to 15,000. And then one of the points that Strive Asset Management brought up, that was Vivek Ramaswamy's company who ran for president. They
Could
brought
be VP.
could be VP, maybe in the cabinet for sure.
Yeah.
I
But
don't know. There's some big talk. Trump was up in Ohio meeting with someone about VP talk.
Oh, is that
They're
right?
But
saying-
this,
Okay.
this is
Yeah.
Twitter, that I'm going.
And the
off of here,
VP
so you
is
never
in the
know.
debate tonight. We know that. Trump said that, and Vivek.
You mean
will-
in the room?
in the room?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Vivek supposedly will be there, but it could be a head fake. We'll see.
I don't think it's Vivek.
Any
you know,
thoughts?
back in the day, they used to take whoever lost the general election, that became the VP. So if Trump won, Biden would be his VP.
Oh, that'd
think
be
about
fun.
that.
That'd be good.
Yeah, the most hated presidency of all time.
No further comments from me on that one. I'm not
No-
gonna indict
nothing like
myself on
unifying the
anything.
country. Have those two guys in charge together. So, my perspective on Starbucks is and this was Strive's point. So when Russia invaded Ukraine, all the McDonald's in Russia had to shut down, and it wasn't material to shareholders. It was obviously a lot of stores, but it wasn't material. If you had a similar situation where China annexes Taiwan, it's pretty serious. Obviously, a lot of chip manufacturing power over there. We're trying to do some stuff to bring that onshore, which is inflationary. But if China invades Taiwan, do you have a situation where all these Starbuckses, all these McDonald's locations are instantly shut down? Is that part of the story? So that's some of the risk in the Chinese market, and I think a lot of companies, a lot of these names that Sam has mentioned, Nike, Starbucks, Disney, Disney doesn't even own a majority of China Disney. They own a minority share in
right.
Disney China,
Yeah,
which is
CCP
insane.
owns
Right.
like 60%.
So you've gotten in bed with communists. That's what you've done. People that literally lock people in prison. You've gotten in bed with people who they have slave camps for the Uyghurs. I mean, this is stuff that nobody wants to talk about. But you've got guys like LeBron James out there taking billions of dollars in money. They have nothing to say about what's going on with the human rights problems in China. And I think a lot of these brands are suffering as a result. You know, it's like you've lost control over your company.
The one thing I can say about Disney, if there's a way to only invest in Disney World, I would put all my money into it because I cannot believe what they charge and how everybody's willing to go there.
What about Disney cruises? My in-laws really wanted to go on one, so we're going on one next summer. We just like planned it all out, but I'm like, oh my goodness,
But I seriously, every single one of my friends was like, yeah, we're taking the kids to Disney. It's like there's like this feeling of I have to. And I ask them what they're paying, and they're paying the amount to go rent a private island. Like it's insane. So Disney World is strong and well, I can tell you that. But can't, I think that's obviously not their biggest part of their portfolio, It's interesting though.
yeah,
Yeah,
the media.
Well, and I think everybody said, oh, it's the go woke, go broke story, which, okay, fine. You can argue the merits of that. I think the bigger story is look at all these studios in general. Look at Paramount. Paramount's talk about dumpster fire. Okay, Paramount's a mess right now. Okay, you've got Warner Brothers, a complete mess. I think that's the bigger story. We talked about consumer preferences changing. Who's going to movie theaters anymore? Anybody waiting for these releases for most movies? No. When's the last time you guys went to a movie theater?
3-4 years.
Wow. So that's the reality is people are streaming, they're watching, and nobody talks about YouTube. YouTube is this massive content machine. I'd say I consume 80% of what I watch between YouTube and Spotify.
Yeah.
That's what I don't go like turn on a show. Like I was working on this last night. I just went on, I watched the 1997 Masters replay, Tiger Woods winning his first one. Yeah, like I'll we'll do stuff like that or watch other podcast shows, like do research on there. To your point, it's a total mess.
Let's pivot. Would you get on a Boeing jet right now?
I would.
I'm flying on one on Friday and I'm slightly, panicked.
Best of luck.
I'd take a Dreamliner. I don't know about the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, at the end of the day, driving home today is more dangerous than getting on any Boeing. But yes, I'd prefer to not be on a Boeing right now.
How did they let that slip? I mean, it's insane. How do you go from probably one of the most respected brands in the world to now we're talking about, do you feel safe in an exit row of a Boeing 747?
I think it's emblematic of the country.
Yeah.
It's a great symbol of where we are in some sense as a nation. Yeah.
Quality control, like,
Yeah. Maybe some hiring practices.
yeah.
Yeah. That weren't up to par. Just lackadaisical in general.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day who used to be at Boeing fairly high up, and I was like, hey, what's going on over there? Because he's been retired for like a decade now, and he's like, oh, it's so sad. I've got all my buddies who helped grow this company into this amazing American brand, and they're just kind of watching it slip right now. So I think the question is, can they turn it around? Because you have Boeing, and then who's the other big manufacturer? Airbus.
Now China too, and Embraer in Brazil.
There's a lot of new
There's
Embraer
more
jets.
coming.
Yeah.
Japan's got some new. There's other countries now that can build. Maybe not as jumbo, right? Maybe
Yeah.
only Airbus, but the smaller ones.
Well,
Yeah.
there's been a huge shift with what airlines want. They're doing a lot of small routes now where you have to jump on a United Express flight. Those are all Embraers now.
Right.
So,
Obviously, mistakes were made. Do you think a little bit of it, though, is media hype, bad luck, and a combination of just when something happens these days, everybody hears about it, and it's been over such a short period? Because again, everything's made a bigger deal with how fast everybody hears about it these days.
I think real quick that the bigger problem, almost more than Boeing to me, almost feels United Airlines particularly, because if you looked at the string of stuff that happened, and I've never met the CEO. I think it's Scott Kirby.
That's right. Yeah.
He's had a little bit of controversial images shown, I guess.
Oh
But
yeah, I did
but
see that.
I think United seems to be isolated with their maintenance program of sorts
Yeah.
as well. On top of the structural issues, I get that with the door, but there were like 8 things that happened to United alone in like a 4-week period. It was crazy. This wasn't happening on Delta. It
Correct.
wasn't happening on American.
No.
So
To Tom's point, it's the media is selling eyeballs. And so, what's the hot story? Boeing's having troubles. Obviously, an exit door falling off the plane mid-flight is a big issue.
It's not great. It's not
But
good.
now you can sell. Oh, Boeing had another issue, this and that. It was like you never heard about anything that happened. And Twitter, I'm on a lot, and obviously a lot of other media stuff. So I have to take everything with a grain of salt, but everything that comes up now is Boeing. It's like, every few days there's a new issue, this or new issue that I'm sure was happening before. We just didn't hear about it.
That's a little bit of what I'm getting. Again, obviously mistakes were made, and I'm sure some of it is they have to be a better company, but how many planes have crashed in the United States that are Boeing?
right.
I mean, yes,
True.
the door came off. That's scary as can be, but wasn't everybody okay? So, and then the stuff that was happening outside of the US was countries with less, what do you call them, regulation around
Right.
that safety protocols that they could pay extra money for to have in the plane. So for me, yes, they have to be a better company, and I hope this makes them a better company. But you look at every industry, there's been as many deaths or more. It just isn't. There's something about a plane that, when you hear Boeing, you think death right now, right? And that's, they need to figure out A, how to fix their company, and then B, they have to figure out how to stop linking their name to every plane might go down tonight.
Well, I bet you everybody who used to do the, make it look like you put your seatbelt on, they're putting their seatbelt on just in case.
I'm one of those people for sure.
I'm with you.
I used to be like, yeah, it's on.
You want to talk McDonald's really quick?
Yeah, real quick.
I mean, the big thing there, honestly, the stock has done pretty well. It's been on a little bit of it's been having an issue right now. And I think one of the biggest things, and we talk about this all the time, is you can go for like a fast casual, something like a Chipotle, or that's way higher quality than going to Big Mac and fries. And it's cheaper these days with inflation. And so I think they're starting to fix that, but I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
As somebody who is on, driving around to job sites a lot and unfortunately has to dive into fast food. Yeah, you're 100% right. Like I remember when it's like, all right, I'll go through, McDonald's, and I'll get my drink and my burger for $6, $7.
Yeah.
And to your point, Chipotle was more, it was 10, right? And now Chipotle is a little more than you want it to be, right? Maybe 12, but McDonald's, you can't get out of there for under 10, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you go through even, and I got my Dunkin' here, a little Dunkin', it's $10 for a little thing and a bagel and a coffee in the morning. It's like, if it's bothering me, that means that the, general population that hits McDonald's for dinner more often, they're feeling it. I saw something on Instagram the other day. Was it 2 adult burgers and 3 kids meals at Five Guys for $72?
Well, Five Guys is Five Guys is crazy.
Right. But like, think about that. $72 for the family to get fast food burgers.
Yeah. I could go downtown Wheaton, which you can keep your comments to yourself about downtown Wheaton.
Well, why would you go downtown Wheaton if you got downtown Naperville 2 steps away?
No,
you don't want the nice one.
Yeah, for you guys.
Less to do.
I could go to a restaurant and pay that with my 2 kids.
If you want to have a much quieter night, you go to Wheaton.
Yeah.
Less going on, less fun,
some Quakers hanging around.
And if you're not from this area, Naperville is just a better town. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and like 5 times the size. It's a lot more fun. And the college that's there is a lot more fun than the one in Wheaton. But now the only thing I think that McDonald's is changing, and that is going to go their way, and Wendy's has made this change a couple other places, is they're finally bringing like a $5 option where burger, fries, and a drink, and you can get it for $5, where they have not had those options.
Yeah, this whole thing is structural anyways, because you've got people moving up market anyways, right? You have luxury. When a country is as wealthy as the United States is, it's just a natural part of society. You're moving towards luxury, right? Everybody wants to do that. So, we went from cars not even having seat belts a couple decades ago to literally you have heated steering wheel, you have heated seat, you have the car will kind of keep you in the lane for a while. all standard in a car, right? That's where the economy has moved towards. That speaks to the United States, quite frankly, our entrepreneur. But same thing with McDonald's. You've got a lot of people that genuinely do not want to eat fast food anymore.
Yep.
And they're moving up to a healthier option. You know, you see this with grocery stores. One company, and not investment advice or anything like that, is Vital Farms. And Vital Farms is the pasture raised eggs, the
Shareholder
milk,
here.
the cheese. Yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
I
So
just sold it though because I ran out a bunch. So
okay,
yeah, but
I just bought the shares you sold.
okay.
You know, you're seeing this preference towards a lot more organic, a lot more homegrown, you know, and you see a difference with the quality too, you know, and that's part of the problem. In the US, we've solved the food problem that most countries have. Like most countries just literally aren't food secure, right? We've got food security, but it's moved towards past the point of healthy. Then it's like, okay, now people are moving back towards this different lifestyle and preference. So
Couldn't agree
Cool.
more.
You want to wrap up with meme of the week?
Yeah. Let's just finish with meme of the week. This one I thought was fitting since Tom is in the decking business, so maybe he's got an opinion on there.
This is not a platinum deck, by the way. If you're wondering,
No, that is a wood deck. It looks like it's the Midwest in probably, I don't know, November. It looks awful. Is there any truth to this? That's
that
really why I
Trex?
wanted to. No, that is not Trex. I can guarantee you. For those that are just listening, they can't see. It's the U.S. economy, 3 stories up on a house with 2 poles, NVIDIA and Taylor Swift holding up the economy.
If your deck looks like this, call Tom immediately.
Yes, seriously, we'll get you his info. We'll put it in the description of the video. But I mean, I know we kind of talked AI, NVIDIA, obviously been on a tear the last 18 months and is kind of
Taylor
poised
Swift's
to
been on a
continue
tear
that.
the last 18 months also.
The last few days, have you been seeing the Eras tour or whatever?
Would
over
you
in
go to a
London?
Taylor Swift show?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you have 3 girls.
Yes, you have
so.
3
Are
girls.
they into Taylor Swift?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Not as like insane, but yeah, they like listening to it and singing it. Yeah.
We talked about that too, where if Taylor Swift was a publicly traded stock, I'm taking out a second mortgage. I'm putting it into her stock.
She sold out. Is she in Wembley, which is a massive stadium? She sold it out like 8 nights in a row. That's ridiculous. Those
Why
numbers
do
are
people
crazy.
like her so much? Your perspective, having 3 girls, what's going on?
You know, I think it has to do more with how smart she is as a marketer than anything. Like if you look into some of the stuff she does with, you know, secret this and figure this out, it's like she's created a fan base that's even less about the music and more about the icon and the story of what she is and how she puts it together. And she just does, you know, she just does things differently than everybody else. Like, you know, something as simple as tipping all the drivers that move the things $100,000. People like that. You know, that's not something that you hear about. So she's almost a marketing genius more than the best singer in the world. You know, I think that's really what she's done, is created a brand, not her song. There's a lot of good songs. I don't think her songs are any better than a lot of the other top artists. She's a marketer.
Well, she's got a real operational process behind what she does too. I mean, they literally have 3 separate setups, like rigs, trucks, like sound systems, crews, because it's so complicated to set this thing up. It takes like 3 days or 4 days. It's like a construction job almost to set it up. She'll do a show, and then while she's going to the next city, they already have the next one set up.
You know, I'll give you an interesting analogy I share with some of my salespeople, because, you know, going out there and selling every day can get, you know, tiring, right? And
Sam doesn't know anything about that.
You know what I end up telling my people? I use the analogy. I'm like, guys, if you want to be the best, look at Taylor Swift. You think she really wants to go put on a 5-hour show? Like, think about how tiring that is. Like, think about what she is going to do 180 times this year. And I'm like, if you want to be the best, like, you go out there and you act like this is your first show you've ever put on in your life. And you want to go be the best salesperson, you better show up like it's your first sale every day. Like, bring Taylor Swift energy to your sales, and you're going to start being more successful, you know?
Her dad's a Merrill Lynch advisor.
There you go.
Yeah.
Retired.
Oh,
and you can start
now.
dating a football player too. That could help.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Also, one last thing, guys, before we go, can you look into the crystal ball right here in front of you? Tell us where you think markets are going the next 12 to 18 months.
Well, it's we mentioned NVIDIA, and it's funny, I'm in the decking business. I no longer check my portfolio. I check NVIDIA, because it is crazy. I truly believe that your little meme is a little bit of where we're headed over the next 12 to 18 months. I think what happens with NVIDIA is going to drive a lot of the market. And if that falls apart, I do worry that a lot of it, some of it's consumer based, some of it's sentimentally based, but I do think a lot of where we're headed is going to depend on what keeps happening with the AI stocks.
Okay, Grant.
12 months from now, our betting man, I'd say we're lower on the averages than we are here today.
You guys know the show is called Bullish, right?
But by 18 months, it might be able to turn it around. So yeah, I would say till we get through the election and even the next few critical months after that, it's going to be a roller coaster.
Well, for what it's worth, I bought NVIDIA when it was $3.75 a share, and I've never sold a penny.
Wow.
So we are fully in.
And how many shares did you? No, I'm just kidding.
Enough.
One.
Congratulations. Right. But
I'm
all
all
right.
in on NVIDIA. So
All right. Well, and Grant is bullish long term. We'll let you get away with the
That's right.
bearish
Yeah,
sentiment
yeah.
for
Long
the
term.
next 12 months or
Golden.
so. Yeah.
Gold.
But that's human nature, though. I think in general, I think everyone says like, "Hey, look, long term, we're gonna be okay." Everyone's an optimist with their actions, right? Like if you were truly a pessimist, you wouldn't get out of your house in the morning. You wouldn't do anything. But it's always that factor of, hey, next month could be bad. A year from now could be bad. And I think a lot of CEOs are doing that too, which is good. We used to be in a world where, we were taking out tons of debt at 0% rates and nobody felt any risk at all. And I'm sure you guys saw that with some of your competitors. And now people are just dealing with reality a little bit more.
And honestly, I feel very good about the state of the stock market. I think the key is you gotta recognize, like we were talking about with Walgreens, there's companies that, because of the almost, top and bottom, where there's been more separation between the upper class and the lower class, I think it comes down to finding the right stocks. But overall, we're going to be in a really good spot over the next 12 to 18 months.
Love to hear it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys. Thanks everyone for listening to episode 18. Remember, if you like what you heard, like, subscribe, share with your friends, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to it. So I hope you have a great rest of the week, and thank you for listening in.